Hey, Stephen on here doing the Junkyard Crawl with help from my friends at High Octane Classics in Auburn, Massachusetts. Thank you. This is a pair of, well, maybe one of Detroit's biggest marketing blunders, the Edsel. 1958, of course, Edsel made its big debut. There's an example of it right there. And while Ford Motor Company thought they'd sell 200,000 or about 250,000, only 63,100 sold. So they realized very quickly they'd made a big error. So the initial idea with the first Edsel was to take on DeSoto, Buick, Pontiac, Oldsmobile. But rather what happened was people would buy an Edsel instead of a Mercury or a Ford. So it basically cannibalized sales. So for 1959, Ford moved the Edsel down market. The senior cars were gone, which were based on longer Mercury wheelbases. So what you were left with in 1959 were base cars, which were still based on the Ford shorter wheelbase and total decontenting. In fact, for the first time ever, you could get a 6-cylinder engine in an Edsel, the 223 cubic inch sinks popper, and 22% of all buyers took the 6, which tells us that the Edsel marketing plan that was going to be upscale totally was wrong. And in total, only 44,891 core Edsels were built in 1959, which was a drop of 18,000 units below the dismal 1958 model year. Now what they kept in 59 was the Oldsmobile sucking a lemon or the horse collar grill, you choose, but they kind of simplified it. No longer was it part of the front fender design, and simplified again. And this one here, the hood doesn't want to open, so I'm not going to beat on it, but the same subliminal E for Edsel, logos here on the gun sight fender, ornaments on the top. And of course, Edsel spelled out in individual letters here, which is basically for a production situation. When you have single letters like that, rather than a whole thing on a panel, takes more time and effort. So Ford was still somewhat invested in Edsel. That would change in 1960, the third and final year. But this one here has the base engine, which at this point was the 292 Y block, something you couldn't get in an Edsel in 1958. Strictly big blocks, but again, they moved down market for 1959. Now this one here and this one, these are both Rangers, which was the base model for Edsel. And again, I can't get the hoods open on either one of these, but again, there's about a 23% chance these are 6-cylinder powered. But again, something that changed for Edsel in 59, gone was 1958's forward hinging hood like the baby Thunderbirds. Rather, they went to a more conventional front lift hood as they merged these closer into the Ford production line and actually built these alongside Fords in Dearborn and other plants. But they retained the wraparound windshield, which of course was a styling trend classic to the 1950s. The only downside to this, it created a thing called a dog leg right in here. If you open a door, there's a big thing here, the instrument panel comes around, and you're sometimes getting in and out, bang your legs on that. But again, form and function fighting right here. Of course, the word Edsel here, a nod to Henry Ford's son, Edsel Ford. And this one here is a 2-door sedan, the base model with the post, the fixed post right here. Although it does have chrome trim here, it's not quite as austere as it could be. Again, the doors aren't going to open on this one, but again, the wraparound rear window, which was a Mercury item. This was not seen on Fords, at least not to that extent. And Ford Edsel Ranger here, the emblems on the rear quarter panels right there. And again, Ranger, if you know your Ford history, that name would come back on a variety of applications. There'd be Ford pickup trucks. The Ranger was the top level, and of course the Ranger, there was a 4-wheel drive vehicle. So Ranger is a term that came and went. And it's funny too, other Edsels were known as the Pacer, which was later used by American Motors on their Fishmobile in 1970s. The Corsair, which is an airplane engine, or airplane name, the Piper Corsair, I think it is. And of course, these are Rangers. On this one here, we see Ranger once again. And let's see if we can get the trunk open on this. Can't do. Yeah, there we go. Now this one here is a 2-door hardtop. Notice that it does not have the full door frame, so that you could still get a convertible in the Edsel line in 1959. But again, most of these things were 2- and 4-door family cars. Now here's the deck lid opening. The word Edsel still there. Triple taillights, quite simple versus what was done in 1958, which was more stylized with many specific components to Edsel. Inside the trunk, yeah, there it is. Now these are body on frame construction. And again, the frame rails are underneath what's left of the trunk floor. Some old bias ply tires right here. And like most cars I see in the junkyard, the one spot that still remains pretty much unmolested from time is the underside of the deck lid, which still shows the aqua paint, almost shiny. Probably the most protected part of any car is the underside of the deck lid. And again, we have here the Edsel wheel covers, which were, again, standard. These are the E for Edsel. Kind of hard to find if you're restoring one of these things. And believe it or not, although the Edsel was a marketing failure, there were people who loved them, and I understand that. And the more years pass, I think the more people will appreciate and understand the importance of the Edsel, even though I think Harvard Business School actually has a course on automotive marketing and the backfire of the Edsel, which was basically clinicked and tested to death by Ford, having people come in, look at styling prototypes, and finally 50 to 100 ideas were thrown together on the same car, and it didn't really work. So again, 1960, halfway through the model year, the Edsel was unceremoniously dropped. Much like the DeSoto division from Chrysler Corporation, it was just something that didn't really apply anymore. It wasn't pertinent. But again, Edsel came and went in 3 model years. And again, it was one of Detroit's greatest blunders. And you can bet that while Ford has revived the Maverick name, the Bronco name, and many great names from the past, the Edsel name I don't think is ever going to come back. But with that said, here are 2 1959 Edsel Rangers, hardtop and sedan, 2 doors, kind of cool, neat cars. But again, underneath that somewhat more expensive skin is a Ford Fairlane under the bones. And the public understood that. That's why these didn't really sell as hard as they could have. But if you like this video, be sure to subscribe to the SteamMags YouTube channel and come back tomorrow for more Junkyard Crawl.